Hello, and welcome to episode number 253 of the LSR podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. With me, I have your favorite and mine, Adam Candee. You can find him over on the Twitter machine. Adam, 2 E's, no Y on that Candee. If you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. Of course, everything we do, absolutely free. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Cost you $0. Does a lot for us. You're kind. We still believe in kindness, right, Adam? There's kindness in this world. This helps us out and doesn't cost anyone anything. It costs them 1 second to hit the subscribe button.
One of my favorite quotes in all the world: be kind to everyone you meet, for they are all fighting a hard battle. And I might have mangled a little bit of that quote, but, be kind. It doesn't cost anything.
I thought you were going with be kind, rewind. And
well,
we were going back to the Blockbuster days.
Shout out to Video Park back in the day in Vegas. We remember you.
Oh, man. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about Missouri, going to talk a little bit about Hard Rock, but let's kick things off with Adam Silver, a guy that is not ashamed to go out and certainly no stranger to making some sound bites, and certainly when it comes to sports betting, Adam Silver has been a guy that we have talked about a bunch. This is something where Adam Silver has had some very quotables about the industry just in general, and here we are right now with another one.
In sort of a retrospective fashion here, Matt, as we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of Adam Silver putting an op-ed in the New York Times discussing the need for legalized sports betting in the United States. And think back to 2014 and just how notable it was that the commissioner of a professional sports league was coming out and saying that gambling should be legalized on sports throughout the country, or that the ability should be there for states to be able to do that. That was seismic at the time. And so Adam Silver was, of course, asked when we come up on this 10-year anniversary, what he thought about that. And now that there have been some scandals like Jonte Porter, were there any second thoughts, any regrets, any sort of hesitation in looking back for Adam Silver? So I'll read you a few of the quotes that I found interesting. Some of these also, I think, in addition to looking back, are going to look a little bit forward and give us a little bit of clarity into where the NBA is going here. We'll start with this quote. I'd say when it comes to sports betting, I certainly don't regret writing that op-ed piece and being in favor of legalized sports betting. I still think you can't turn the clock back. As I said at the time, with the advent of the internet, widely available sports betting online, we had to deal directly with technology and recognize that if we don't legalize sports betting, people are going to find ways to do it illegally. So let's take a pause there, Matt, and take that piece on its own. Because as much as we have discussed that concept here on the pod, that coming from the commissioner of a professional sports league at that time and even now is still remarkable when you think about the history of this. And it's easy to forget the history of this if you just get lost in the last 6.5 years of legal sports betting. But when you think about the push in the Murphy case in New Jersey by the NCAA and the sports leagues against legalized sports betting, and the fact that Adam Silver really still during the adjudication of all of that was willing to come out and acknowledge that reality that we've talked so much about here on the pod, I think deserves note.
No, absolutely. It was, I remember reading that. It's crazy that it's been 10 years, right? I remember reading that. I remember talking about this at length with anyone that would talk about it with me, just saying wow, how groundbreaking is this for someone in his position to actually take a stance like this and put it out there in public? And, there was a fair amount of scrutiny, as you remember, through all of that. There was a lot of people who said, how you can't have a commissioner of a sports league saying stuff like this, and goes on and on and on. And, here we are coming on the 10th anniversary, and we start to look around and we go, man, not only was the dude right, but he was before his time in being right with all of that. And I look at it now, and there's the people who are going to say, yeah, but look at what's happened. And you've had the Jonte Porter stuff, and you've had this, that, and the other. And Adam, will just circle back to what we keep saying over and over and over again. That's the whole purpose of legalizing sports betting. That we caught people trying to take advantage of a system. We caught someone trying to do something that was illegal. And so, we've come a long way since this article came out, but man, what a cool thing that this is 10 years old. I had no idea. I'm glad that this is a topic today.
Yeah, and Matt, to back up your point, in that same article at ESPN.com, you see where Adam Silver calls Jonte Porter, again, his actions a cardinal sin. And what did Adam Silver do? He immediately broke out the banhammer, right? There was no half measure taken by the commissioner of the NBA against Jonte Porter for attempting to manipulate his performance to benefit gamblers who were going to make money off him. It is the cardinal sin. There's no question about that. Adam Silver recognized it and dealt with it as such. And Adam Silver, of course, has more reason than maybe even some other commissioners to take the kind of stance that he did. Because, Matt, as we've seen, the NFL is king when it comes to sports betting. We know that. However, the NBA is not as far behind as you might think if you're not paying attention to the sports betting reports month after month. And you will see that the NBA in most states surpasses college football, surpasses college basketball, surpasses Major League Baseball. It is one of the most heavily bet on sports in the legal market. And I think it's important to go to this point from Adam Silver next, Matt. He talked about how the integrity issues, of course, matter quite a bit to the NBA, but he recognizes how much is bet on sports and how much is bet on the NBA. But keep in mind, as much as we talk about the leagues and their relationships with sportsbooks and the deals that they have, they're not making money based upon how much is bet on the sport. Adam Silver said this, as I sort of said day one, sports betting is not a huge business for us in terms of a revenue stream into the league, but it makes a big difference in engagement. It's something that people clearly enjoy doing. I'd put it in the category of other things in society that I wouldn't criminalize them, but on the other hand, that you have to heavily regulate them, because if there's not guardrails, people won't run afoul and create issues, problems for themselves, problems for their families or operations like us. And I think that is an insight, Matt, that we haven't really gotten that often into the NBA. We don't know a ton about the value of these deals and how much they really mean to the bottom line of the league. But there's Adam Silver pulling the curtain back a little bit to say, look, this isn't about us making millions upon millions upon millions from our sportsbook partnerships. It's more about the fact that we know that fans are going to engage with far more NBA content than just that is related to sports betting if they are involved in that as an entertainment activity.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the point just about basketball in general. And I think that, Adam Silver is pretty open with the fact that I've heard him say in other interviews, that of course this is good for the popularity of our game. There are people who are more engaged, and more engagement is always going to be good for the sport. And you talk about from a sports betting perspective where basketball fits in, and it's just a more bettable sport than baseball and then hockey and then tennis and MMA and all this. Like, you look at it and it does mirror the NFL in a lot of aspects, right? It is your typical point spread that people are used to, which they get whenever they're betting on an NFL game. You also have player props, which are a big part of the NBA that people are used to over on the NFL side of things. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, points, rebounds, assists, rebounds, points, rebounds, rebounds, assists, all the different things that you can go in to bet on this. This is also a really good live betting experience, betting the NBA as well. I mean, Adam, how many times have you heard it's a game of runs? It's a game of runs, and like the team that you like gets down early and you get involved into the game, and it is a really good live betting sport. And further, unlike the NFL, you don't get the fantasy boost. You don't get the fantasy bump that you get from the NFL. Like, casual people can play fantasy NFL because it only happens once a week and it's easy to manage. You can't, casual people just can't play fantasy NBA. Having to keep up with the sport on a night-to-night basis is way too much for most people out there. And so they don't get that fantasy bump, right? Like, the sports betting really is kind of the bump when it comes to the engagement stuff for the NBA. And so I think that there is a world that exists where the NFL obviously will always be king, Adam, but like you said, we'll be kind of talking about the one, the two, and then everybody else. And that two will clearly be the NBA, and it will be head and shoulders above every single thing else that we bet on.
So it'll be interesting if that does come around, is what sort of power does the NBA have? We know that it wasn't that long ago that Dan Spillane at the NBA was leading the charge for beginning with the integrity fee discussion and then, of course, transitioning into the official league data discussion. Now, integrity fees went nowhere with state legislatures, but official league data did gain traction, and a lot of states ultimately mandated the use of the NBA's league data feed. That is something that is settled in most places, but now we still have discussion at the federal level of whether there will be some regulation of sports betting, and Adam Silver discussed that as well. He said, quote, "I was in favor of a federal framework for sports betting. I still am. I still think that the hodgepodge of state by state, it makes it more difficult for the league to administer it. I think it creates competition, understandably, among states to get, just think New York, New Jersey, or a situation like that where you're both competing for the same customer so you can compete on tax rates and other things and a regulatory framework." So he also went on to discuss the need to protect underage people from sports betting and those sorts of responsible gambling concerns that we've talked about quite a bit. Interesting to me to hear him specifically bring up New York, New Jersey, and the competition on tax rates, because it shows that Adam Silver is attuned to some of the nuance of this in a way that I don't think every league commissioner is, right? Those are issues that go very deep into the weeds of sports betting in a way that we discuss on this podcast quite a bit, but that a lot of the casual person does not.
Yeah, I have long thought of Adam Silver as far as like league commissioners go as a dude that I think does get it a little bit better than most of the people. And I'm not saying that, you know what, let's not kid ourselves here, Adam. He's just the one who will actually say stuff out loud, right? I mean, like Roger Goodell gets it. He just doesn't want to say all the stuff out loud, right? I mean, he understands the ramifications if he says one little wrong thing or something like that. Whereas the NBA's just, I think Adam Silver's kind of embracing the cool. Hey, like we're kind of like the cool league now, you know, like we're okay with some of this new stuff, and we're okay with these different things that, you know, you haven't been all used to in the past. And I commend him for that. Now, does that equal down the line, like I said, where they're literally the clear number two in this whole landscape? I mean, that's to be seen. But I'll put it this way. I think what he's done so far, specifically from you and I, from our perspective, being able to talk so openly about this industry that you and I are so ingrained in, being able to talk so openly about the benefits of it in the real world, Adam. The real world is, like he said, this is happening anyway. There's an interested in doing it. And so, yeah, regulating it is still better for us because we don't have any shenanigans. And if the shenanigans go on, there is a process in place to try to catch that and make sure that we don't let that get out of control. And so everything he's done and said so far, for the vast majority, I've agreed with and really do commend him on taking the stance.
Yeah, he certainly has been more out front, I think, than others in terms of just having the discussion.
Let's head to the great state of Missouri. What are we getting here?
So in Missouri, you have to read the campaign finance reports to really understand what's going on there.
Oh, I love doing it, buddy. You know, I love doing it, Adam. Oh, man. I just I get some extra time at night, and that is just the first thing I pop open.
Yeah. Now, are you a federal guy? Do you like to go FEC, or do you go to the state level? What's your jam?
More by county. I more like to really drill in. Yeah, just really drill in.
Yeah. If there's anything I've always known in our friendship, it's that we can always talk county campaign finance reports, Matt. It's a safe harbor in our discussions. When we look at Missouri, we see couple things. We'll start with the top line here, that in the most recent campaign finance reports, we see that the pro and the anti, we're now up to more than $44 million in funding that has been put into the ballot question that will be decided in a few weeks here in Missouri as to whether to legalize online sports betting. And I could say to you $30 million, $40 million, $50 million. It sounds like monopoly money in that sense. We can put it in context and say not nearly what was spent in the hundreds of millions of dollars in California back in 2022. However, per capita, it's a pretty big expenditure for DraftKings, FanDuel, notably on the pro side, and now Caesars clearly on the anti side. And that leads us into the more in-the-weeds discussion of this. Something that Pat Evans noticed in the campaign finance reports, and we might have mentioned a little bit about this in the past, but when you go match up what you see in the campaign finance reports, you see that a woman by the name of Jacqueline Wood is the treasurer of the campaign against the ballot initiative. Turns out that is the same person who filed the lawsuit against the ballot initiative, trying to get it thrown off the ballot in Missouri. And if you know the way we've gone about reporting on this case, we've used the word mysterious over and over again because no one ever owned up to filing that lawsuit in terms of who were the bigger supporters behind it, because it was filed by two political consultants who seemingly had no ties to sports betting one way or the other. Well, this is the first concrete sign that we have had that Caesars, which is heavily funding the anti-measure, is also in some way connected to that ballot initiative lawsuit, because the same person who filed the lawsuit is the treasurer of the campaign that is receiving many millions of dollars from Caesars and its affiliated casinos in Missouri. And if you're deep into the industry, you might listen to this and say, duh, Adam, we all kind of knew that. Well, yeah, maybe duh on the surface to those of you who live this day to day, but our job here at Legal Sports Report is we're looking for the tangible, factual pieces of this when no one is talking, right? We've contacted FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars. We've contacted the casinos in the states. No one was really talking about who it was that filed this lawsuit. If you wanted to connect some dots loosely, you could do that back to Caesars, because we know that Caesars, having that physical presence in the state, liked the language that was in the legislative bills that did not allow for untethered licenses. And when we talk about untethered licenses, we're talking about those that are not directly tied to a brick and mortar casino operation. And there are untethered licenses in the ballot measure. Those are most likely to go to DraftKings and FanDuel, who are providing most of the pro funding for this campaign. So there's one thing when you just say, looks that way. There's another thing for us at LSR to do our jobs and say, yeah, it might look that way, but now we're showing you that it probably is that way.
Interesting stuff, no doubt, and I'm sure everybody in Missouri will be clicking on the articles over there on LegalSportsReport.com to read further into all of this reporting, all the stuff going on behind the scenes, Adam. We always are just so curious as to why things are happening the way that they are. One of the sports books operators that we talk about probably the least, I would imagine, on here is Hard Rock, because there really isn't just a ton to talk about with Hard Rock. We know where they're located. We know what they're doing out there, and there isn't a whole lot of news outside of that. But we do come to the table today with a little bit of Hard Rock news.
And of course, the reason that we don't have as much Hard Rock news is that although they are live in multiple states, their largest state is, of course, the one where they have a monopoly in Florida. And because that is a tribal operation, we do not have the same insight into the revenue that comes through Hard Rock, because they don't have to file the public reports that regulated operations in other states do. So the news we have here, and I bring this up from a B2B perspective, Matt, Hard Rock announced a deepened partnership here with Kambi for more odds, more markets, more ability to offer same game, more ability to offer live betting. And I don't think there's anything revolutionary in that, right? We know the fact that Hard Rock and every sports book wants to be able to compete on the same footing that other U.S. sports betting operators do with higher hold offerings. Now, the interesting part to me goes back to the whole idea of, do you do it in-house or do you have a third-party partnership? And Kambi has notably lost some major partnerships in the U.S. over the last few years. However, they have stood firm that they believe that there's still opportunity in the U.S. market for them. And this shows that with one of the larger operators, at least in the state of Florida, that there is an opportunity for them to integrate their odds feed into what Hard Rock is doing. Now, that goes in contrast to DraftKings purchasing SimpleBet. That goes in contrast to the BetMGM deal with Angstrom. It goes against the PointsBet deal with Bannock before they became part of the Fanatics operation. So just thought it was interesting to note that it's not all acquisition right now. And certainly we would speculate it's not for lack of capital on the Hard Rock part
Right.
that it would be that way of doing things that they would choose to go with Kambi as opposed to an acquisition.
Adam, before we get out of here, I just want to get your opinion here on Texas, and if you think that we have a better shot now, because since we know Jerry Jones is behind sports betting there in Texas, he might go in and just threaten to fire all the people who don't agree with him, and so maybe we have a better shot of things going down there in Texas now, right? You don't have to work for him apparently for him to fire you. I mean, like, it's like you don't have to work for him, and he'll still threaten to fire you.
It's kind of crazy to me that a man with the riches of Jerry Jones felt the need to say the quiet part out loud. Like, we know you're a billionaire. You could buy and sell any of us in the media industry on any given day. If Jerry Jones goes to that radio station and says, I want to buy the station, he's going to buy the station, and then he's going to air whatever he wants. Like, we all know that. It's implied, Jerry. We get that. Maybe not this week when you just got waxed at home by Detroit and trolled so badly that they're throwing passes to Penei Sewell. Like, maybe not this week for going out there and popping off like that.
I can just see him, like, he's sitting there. He's like, yeah, that state representative, he's gonna vote against me. I'm gonna get him fired. And that lieutenant governor, I'm gonna get him fired. I'm just gonna tell you, step in my way, I'm just gonna get you fired. I guess though, Adam, you do reach an age where you have so much money and you're of an age where you've only got a few years left as it is anyway. You might as well just say whatever in the hell you want to anyway. Not saying that this is a life parallel to anything else that's going on in this world right now, but I'm just saying that, like, that you get to a certain age, you just say whatever comes to mind and you just do it,
Yeah, I think that is applicable in many walks of life, Matt. That is definitely something that I've noticed with Jerry Jones and Jerry Jones only.
Absolutely. Guys, this is episode number 253. We thank you for being around for so many of these things. We're on your favorite podcast platform, so if you want to subscribe, we do appreciate that as well. It takes you absolutely no time. And if you want to leave a review, it does help us climb the charts as well. LegalSportsReport.com is where you find the written versions of all of the topics plus more over there, so be sure to take in all the words that Adam and company are putting down over there at LegalSportsReport.com. For Adam, I am Matt. Talk to you guys next week.